صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام را. تلك آيات الكتاب المبين. إنا أنزلناه قرآنا عربيا لعلكم تعقلون. نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن عليك القرآن وإن كنت من قبله لمن الغافلين. إذ قال يوسف لأبيه يا أبت إني رأيت 11 كوكبا والشمس والقمر رأيتهم لي ساجدين. إذ قال يوسف لأبيه يا أبت إني رأيت 11 كوكبا والشمس والقمر رأيتهم لي ساجدين. إذ قال يوسف لأبيه يا أبت إني رأيت 11 كوكبا والشمس والقمر رأيتهم لي ساجدين. قال يا بني لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك فيكيدوا لك كيدا. إن الشيطان للإنسان عدو مبين قال يا بني لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك فيكيدوا لك كيدا إن الشيطان للإنسان عدو مبين إن الشيطان للإنسان عدو مبين صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Thank you all for coming tonight. We extend our condolences to the Imam of our time as we commemorate the tragedy and the death anniversary and martyrdom of our dear Holy Prophet, Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Raza alayhi salam in these nights. Inshallah, before we invite up our dear guest scholar, there's a request for a Fatiha for all of our marhameen, but especially the sponsors of tonight's program. Please recite a Fatiha for Marhum Badr Unisa Beqam, Qamar Unisa Beqam, Mahar Unisa Beqam, Bint Mir Alam Ali Khan, Bashir Unisa Beqam, and Bint Haidar Ali Mirza. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inshallah, we'll be continuing our program tonight and tomorrow night as well. And we're very blessed to have with us our dear guest scholar. Please help me invite up Sheikh Ehsan Ahmadi with a loud salawat by Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وأما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وكأي من نبي قاتل معه ربيون كثير فما وهنوا لما أصابهم في سبيل الله وما ضعفوا وما استكانوا والله يحب الصابرين. And how many of a prophet fought, and with him fought many religious scholars or godly men, but they never lost assurance due to what afflicted them in the cause of Allah, nor did they weaken or submit. And Allah loves the steadfast. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah wa ala al-arwah allati hallat bifanaik عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. First and most of all, جميعا سلام عليكم ورحمة الله. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your great deeds and a'mal, especially your commemoration and mourning and azadari for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in the months of Muharram and Safar. And inshallah we gain the tawfiq and bounty and barakah of going to his ziyarat with the true status of ma'rifah in our life, and inshallah the benefits of his shafa'ah along with the rest of the Ahlul Bayt and the Quran in this life and the next. Recite aloud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As we remembered before the majlis, let us remember all the marhumin and marhumat, especially the ones who were named. And inshallah we can include them with the sawab and the rewards of the majalis of Abu Abdullah by reciting aloud salawat followed by Surah Al-Fatiha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman. And last but not least, inshallah, we can sincere our intention with all the power and energy, and inshallah, the hope and the du'as that we can have. We can ease the pain and express our condolences to the heart of Imam of Time, Hazrat Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, by reciting our loudest of salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We're thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this bounty and blessing to be able to gather around under the beautiful banner of Sayyid al-Shahada and Ahlul Bayt. And what a better topics to learn from the school of the Ahlul Bayt and the teachings of the Quran as we reaching the end of the month of Safar, the month of sorrow and grief of the Ahlul Bayt. So we started having a little bit discussion on one famous hadith by Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salatu wassalam, in which he's talking to Harun al-Rashid, and Harun al-Rashid is bragging about basically what he has accomplished under the name of what he refers to as an Islamic nation or Islamic territory. And he's showing that off to Imam Musa al-Kadhim and asking him, like, how do you find all of this great amount of territory, great amount of number of Muslimin and Muslimat, all of the power that we have, the golden time of an Islamic era in a sense. So Imam Musa al-Kadhim turns around and he tells them right up front that all of this that you're talking about, this dar, if you want to refer to it as realm, this region, this continent, this from the northern Africa all the way to the Eastern Asia, all of it is nothing except one word, Darul Fasiqin. It is the territory of Fasiqin. Right up front in the eyes of Harun. So Harun gets shocked from one aspect, then Imam continues to explain what does he mean by fasiq. And he keeps on bringing ayahs and ayahs of the Quran telling fasiqin are those who break their promise and covenant and contract with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says if that person becomes a pivot, becomes a circle, becomes a center of formation of a civilization, what would you expect? Nothing but fasiq will come out of that system. Right? When you take the leader out and you put someone instead, when that leader has not any sort of like connection to what a true version of knowledge is, what will come at the end? What will be as the result of that person? All we will be ending up with will be the Darul Fasiqin. Then Harun continues, فَقَالَ لَهُ Harun فَدَارُ مَنْ هِيَ. If you say, this is all like, we are the fasiqin and we are have created this Islamic territory, which in Imam's terminology is not Islamic, is actually for fasiqin, then who actually this place belongs to? Imam turns around and says, قَالَ هِيَ لِشِيعَتِنَا فَتْرَةٌ وَلِغَيْرِهِمْ فِتْنَةٌ. Answers in a very clever way, if you want to say. He says, this whole thing that you see, قَالَ هِيَ لَشِيعَتَنَا فَطْرَةً. It is a test for our Shias. Doesn't say directly it belongs to our Shia. No, he says فَطْرَةً. فَطْرَةٌ لَشِيعَتَنَا. All of this you see, this geography, this territory, the entire thing that you have, the power that you have in your hand, all of it, when it comes to comparison to our Shia, becomes فَطْرَةً. Meaning it becomes like a test. وَلِغَيْرِهِمْ fitna. And for the ones who are not Shias, who are not the followers, it becomes a fitna. Meaning the very same, like let's say utilities, the very same objects, the very same power, the very same knowledge, the very same wealth that you're using it, if the very same one becomes fitna in your hand, and it becomes the very same fitna, becomes a testing purposes for our Shias. فما بال صاحب الدار لا يأخذه فقال أخذت منه عامرة ولا يأخذها إلا معمورة. Harun gets a little bit upset as the discussion heats up. So he said, if that's what you say is correct, and you see me as the means of testing your Shia, the followers, فما بال صاحب الدار لا يأخذها. Then how come the true owner of this territory does not take it back? Imam responds, فقال أخذت منه عامرة ولا يأخذها إلا معمورة. أخذت منه عامرة. He said this territory that you're talking about was taken away from him, from the true owner. At what stage? Amira. Amira means when it was ready, it was flourished. Everything was set in order. We call it Amira. وَلَا يَأْخُذُهَا إِلَّا مَعْمُورًا. And we would not take it back unless if it becomes ma'amur. Ma'amur is after Amir. Amir, you set it up, something happens to it. Then you have to rechange it again until it reaches back the stage of like Amara, becomes like livable if you want to say. Then we call it ma'amur. So what is Imam is referring to? He's talking about the way, the very first day after the Shahada or demise of Nabi Rasulullah. Meaning Nabi Rasulullah and Amir al-Mu'mineen, they had said everything perfect for a changeover, for that turning point in which will continue the very same path. That's why Imam refers to it as Amira. When everything was ready, everything was sound, secure, everything was ready for the continuation of the guidance and having that Darul Muwahhideen or Darul Rabbaniyun or Darul like Iman, فَأَخَذَتْ. They took it from him, right? Now what happens? The minute we take it even for 1 degree away from where it truly belongs, it becomes the whole different story. And this story is there to stay for a long, long, long time. Why? Because if it's not on that 100%, there will be so many other numbers who tend to claim for the very same spot. Which is why Imam says, وَلَا يَأْخُذُهَا إِلَّا مَعْمُورًا. It's not that it's going to go back and reclaim what was taken away from him, unless if becomes ma'amur again, becomes ready for that establishment, right? So this is talking about a duration between all of this time. From that day, all the way, inshallah, to the time of zuhur, or the appearance. All of it is for what? So that we get, or that establishment, that foundation, once again goes back to the original stage, which was like about 1400 years ago at least, becomes ma'amur. So what are the signs of this that Imam is referring to? That's completely directly actually related to the topic of intizar, being awaiting for our Imam of time. From where? From the time of Imam Musa al-Kazim, Imam is telling us this. That not unless if the whole foundation becomes ready, becomes ma'amur at this stage of ma'amur, ready to build something on it, they're not going to reclaim what is truly theirs. Talks about our duties and responsibilities and how we have to emphasize on this connection that inshallah that we have not only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala but with our Imam of time. So when we look at a lot of ahadith, a lot of teachings of the Quran, verses of the Quran, a lot of stories, and most of the questions that usually is raised from this very same aspect, that what am I supposed to be doing during the occultation? What should I be doing? What should I not be doing? How can I get that that closeness to the Imam of time, right? As if Imam Musa al-Kazim is talking about this step by step. So he talks about one, and he gives this pointer, if we want to say. He refers to the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen and says even Amir al-Mu'mineen, after that 25 years of silence and being patient, even at that time he did not want to take the Khilafah. Even at that time when all the people were going towards him, right? To the point that, as we read the hadith, Hassanain were about to get crushed among all the high number of the people who were going to pay their bay'ah to Amir al-Mu'mineen. And that's what Imam says, if it was not for fearing the life of so many mu'mineen and mu'minat to get trampled over all of these people, I would not have taken the bay'ah. So even Amir al-Mu'mineen, within 25 years. So what has happened, and what is this fitna? That within 25 years, it changes everything that Nabi Rasulullah has done for the 23 years. Then Imam talks about it, and he refers to again another ayah of the Quran. وَلَا تَمُدَّنَّ عَيْنَيْكَ إِلَى مَا مَتَّعْنَا بِهِ أزواجا منهم زهرة الحياة الدنيا لنفتنهم فيه. Do not extend your glance toward what we have provided certain groups of them as a glitter of the life of this world, so that we may test them thereby. The provision of your Lord is better and more lasting. It's referring to that fitna, the fitna that starts and makes what was ma'mur amir, and then for that to change back, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how long do we need and how much we have to work towards it to shift this back to the original place. What is that fitna? Imam refers to the ayah of the Quran of saying, do not even lay your eyes on this fitna, even for the smallest or the slightest of second. وَلَا تَمُدَّنَّ عَيْنَيْكَ إِلَى مَا مَتَّعْنَا بِهِ. On what? مَا مَتَّعْنَا بِهِ. On what we have given them. Who is them in this ayah? Obviously, the opposite of the believers. Do not lay your eyes, do not lay your hope, do not lay your wishes and desires and goals and objective on what? On what we have given them, right? أَزْوَاجًا مِّنْهُمْ زَهْرَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Because what is this? It's just glitters of the hayat of dunya, right? It's those those adornments, those catching eye moments of the hayat of dunya. Remember the example of the golden calf? It's so shiny, it's so clean, it's so new, it makes noises, it has all of these cool features, right? The minute they laid eye on it, they started to worship it. So we're not talking about worshiping, we're talking about way before that. وَلَا تَمُدَّنَّ عَيْنَاكَ. Don't even lay your eyes on it. On what? On all of the stuff that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to disbelievers. Disbelievers in this content referring to Dar al-Fasiqeen. Meaning, don't look at what Harun or Rashid has in his power in terms of the number and number and number and number, but what? Focus on what the path is. Go back to seeing what is the mission of the Ahlul Bayt. What is the mission of Nabi Rasulullah? What was the mission of Amir al-Mu'mineen Imam al-Hassan? What was the mission of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? Constantly going back to the very same mission. And this what becomes very crucial, because the more prolonged this time of waiting for the zuhur of Imam becomes, the more likely we are falling down left and right every day of our life for the glitters of dunya. Meaning the exact opposite of what the ayah is mentioning. It's not that we're laying our eyes on it, no, literally we're embracing it. And that's what we have in the hadith as well. Imam al-Zaman, when he writes the Tawheed, the letter, he mentions the reason that why the occultation has become prolonged for such a long time. And he mentioned specifically word by word. And he mentioned if it was not this sensation of wanting more and more and more in your lives, you would have seen the zuhur right on the very same day. The topic of takathur. Alhaakumut takathur. Hatta zurtumul maqabir. So much we want, and so much we make ourselves busy with the same hayat of dunya, until when? Hatta zurtumul maqabir. Until we see the grave. Until we see the inna lillah. But when? At that time of inna lillah is already too late. The whole life has passed away. And all I have been focused on what? To gain more and more and more, invest more, extend the amount of investment, extend the amount of responsibility, extend the amount of the stuff that I own, the positions that I have, the attachments that I have, constantly on the increased load. Now wait, does that mean like Islam is telling us not to go to work? No. Don't get the message wrong. No, this takathur has a meaning in depth of it. Meaning when we aim only to expand whatever we own. Because the life is passing by, right? And when we look back, when we were younger, we wanted the stuff that nowadays we don't want it perhaps, inshallah. Some people, as they grow up, they keep on saying, oh, Sheikh, I have grown up, I have become an adult, but I still have that 7-year-old in me. Every so often, I have to go back and pick up that video game and start playing all over again, making sure I do my ziyarat of the video games, right? No, I'm not talking about that stage, so leave that aside. The time goes by. The life goes by. We're getting aged, as we say. Every day, every week, every month that goes by, the life is going by. The accomplishment that we have in life is constantly growing. The stuff we gain is constantly growing. We're not talking about this. That's a path of life, and we're supposed to continue on that path. What is Imam is referring to is saying this takathur in terms of when the takathur takes over your entire lifestyle. Every moment you wake up, all you think will be about the different stuff that you had to take care of, right? The different stuff that you have to invest, to the point that some people actually dream about investing even at their night, right? Even when they're sleeping, they're doing exchange of the stock. Even when they're sleeping, they're doing, the exchange of the different currency to another currency, right? Even when they're dreaming, they keep on seeing themselves building these mansions and palaces, and right? Even when they're dreaming. What is the dreaming for? What's the sleeping time for? To gain that sense of peace and comfort and peace of mind. But even that is being used to extend what we have. But is it a realistic dream, or is it something that goes based on the desires and the wishes that we have? And where does the wishes come from? If you look deep inside, a lot of goals that we have in life, we have to cut down a little bit, deeper inside within our heart. Why am I going after all of the stuff that every day makes me get up in the morning and go to work? Is it only the dollar amount to pay off the expenses? Or no, is it the whole momentum that is pushing me towards something? If it's a momentum, if it's a mainstream, if it's a trend, I have to be careful. That if it's a trend, I cannot give in to this trend to the utmost amount. I have to have those barriers for myself. If I don't set the barriers, what happens? The mainstream takes me very easily. And that's how we get dissolved with this topic of takathur. Constantly wanting more and more and more for the sake of more. Not even benefiting from the more. The benefit by itself, right? We have to draw the line. Where is that line when it comes to the life of a believer? Am I supposed to just go for the best of the best and the newest of the newest in every single fashion or every single thing that comes out? The best of the best car, the best of the best house, the best of the best, neighbor, the best of the best jobs. Is that what we're supposed to aim for? That's what we refer to as being a result-driven person. I'm only thinking in terms of what kind of benefits it has for me in terms of my convenience and whatever it provides for me. No, in a religious context, that means being completely selfish, actually. But what kind of selfish? Not a good kind. We have different kind of being selfish. One kind of selfish is you just want everything for yourself and you keep on adding all of this stuff to yourself. Now it becomes the time of accountability. Now Allah knows how we would be answering for those. There's another type of selfishness, which you can say is actually good. When is that? When we understand the true status of ourselves, then we want to rescue ourselves from what it has been drowned in. So that becomes a true sense of selfishness. So now we get in the habit of doing an exchange, but not exchange for the sake of the mundane world. The terminology Amir al-Mu'mineen used, and we talked about it last night. Do not become the tajir of ghurur. Do not become a businessman who's constantly dealing with ghurur. It takes ghurur, exchanges for more ghurur, takes more ghurur, exchanges for even higher ghurur. Ghurur is something that makes you completely forget about the reality. Gharra means like a veil, right? It covers the eyes, it does not see beyond it. It forgets about the reality. It forgets about hereafter. It forgets about everything. All it sees is that typical glamour or glory of whatever it's in front of it. The golden material of the golden calf, right? Again, it's eye-catching. A lot of people actually like the color of the gold, right? It brings a lot of attention to itself. Now you put a lot of stuff on it, a lot of features on it. And that's how the marketing works. Just look at the marketing ads. How do they work? They bombard you with what? With a set of features and the benefits that specific product may have for you, right? Look at the advertising. It's very good. We can learn from them. This is what it does for you. This is what it does. This is what, like, all these cool features and all of these new things. And guess what? It has all of this extra stuff, right? In comparison to the previous product. At the end, maybe they use a disclaimer and saying, okay, and it has all of these side effects as well. Like, look at a lot of medicines that they sometimes promote. The very first line they start, hey, guess what? Are you suffering from this? And then all of the benefits of that specific, let's say, medication, drugs, prescription, whatever that is that they're promoting. Or if it's like, an object, if it's a car, if it's a house, if it's a loan, doesn't matter. Always talk now in terms of the benefits. Oh, this is what you want. If you get this, all of your problem will be resolved. You will finally find that peace that you're looking for. What does Allah say? It says in the Quran, وَلَا تَمُدَّنَّ عَيْنَيْكَ. Do not even lay your eye on it. Lay your eye on it doesn't mean only just, like avoid looking a different way. No. It means like, do not let your heart to be taken away with this glamorous that you see up front. If we go for this glamorous that we see at the first sight, that's when we're giving in to that Darul Fasiqin. Literally, that's what Harun al-Rashid was doing. That's what Muawiyah did on the first day that after the peace treaty, when he goes on the minbar in the masjid of Kufa. What does he say? He's facing Muslimin and Muslimat. He sits on the minbar where Amir al-Mu'minin used to sit. What does he say? So I did not fight with you to tell you how to offer your namaz, how to do your fasting, how to recite the Quran, how to go to Hajj, how to pay your khums and zakat. I did not fight for any of this. What did I fight for? I fight for this power. To be able to rule over you. The thirst for power, right? Power by itself is one of those glitters of the hayat of dunya. Everybody likes to be powerful. You can see it in school, especially among the younger ones, right? The topic of bullying one another, that comes from the very same attributes of wanting that power. I'm in charge, my way, my view, my word. To what extent? It's not only in high school. You take it all the way to the elders. Still fights. When the center becomes 2, and the 2 becomes 4, and the 4 becomes, mashallah, 16, then you say, okay, what happened? It's not like they have outgrown their capacity so that they add like an extra one. That's a good way. No, you have one center that barely has enough people, and they get divided to 2 centers. Why? You start digging and digging and digging. It doesn't take that long, actually. You go back to one session, one majlis, one Muharram, 1 month of Ramadan, and what's the fight over? You guys tell me. Oh, they serve biryani on the day of Ashura, or Halim, I'm sorry, Halim, right? My mistake. Halim on the day of Ashura, or no, we want qima, or we want qima, right? We want it spicy, they want it not spicy. We want it Urdu, they want it Farsi or Arabic, right? Opens up. So we laugh about it, but what does that indicate? That in reality, if you do not work on this, attributes, literally all we're doing, we're just establishing and flourishing that Darul Fasiqin for ourselves. For ourselves. We're thinking we're doing something good by having the majalis of the Ahlul Bayt. Yes, that's the first step. We have to start from there. But if you don't take that one, if you don't reflect based on it, part of it is the personal life, part of it comes to the society and the community. If I'm not able to control that anger, if I'm not able to control that sense of seeking power, especially during the majalis in the name of the Ahlul Bayt, that they constantly are the role model for us being patient during the most severe of times. So what does that tell me? It tells me that companionship, that fellowship of the Ahlul Bayt, going along with the Ahlul Bayt is not there. If it's not there, what is there? It's that bare minimum which we always talk about. The very first level of having affection towards the Ahlul Bayt. That's good, it's needed, it's necessary, but hey, guess what? We have not gained that one ourselves. It's been embedded within us. It's part of our nature. The famous hadith when our imams talk about the Shi'ayan, they say the Shi'ayan, the followers of us, the Ahlul Bayt, were created from the remaining dust or soil of us, the Ahlul Bayt. Meaning this hubb of the Ahlul Bayt is already embedded within our hearts. So we haven't done anything to earn it. But are we supposed to keep it at the very bare minimum? Or no, that's been placed there so that we can flourish it. We can nurture it. We can let it grow. We can let it grow to the extent that inshallah takes over our entire existence. One example from Amir al-Mu'mineen and how much the love between Amir al-Mu'mineen and Nabi Rasulullah. Everybody knows about the Battle of Uhud. Battle of Uhud, what happens? When the army goes around and when the archers, they come in to go after the looting, right? What's the looting in that part? When they go after the dunya. Everybody's taking it. I have to go and take my share. Otherwise, I will be losing, right? Anyway, they go down. And once they make a circle, once they start attacking Nabi Rasulullah, what happens to all of the Muslimin? Literally every single one of them start to run away. And there is this rumor that Nabi Rasulullah has already been killed. So on top of that, whoever was remaining or was looking for Nabi Rasulullah, they start to run away. Who is left behind? Amir al-Mu'mineen. Where? Right in front of Nabi Rasulullah. To the point that Nabi Rasulullah tells him, strike right, he strikes right. He tells him, strike left, he strikes left. Strike forward, right? Keeps on telling him to strike left, right, forward, and Amir al-Mu'mineen constantly is hitting. But who's taking the blows? Who's taking the strikes? Who's taking all of the attacks? Amir al-Mu'mineen. To what extent? After Battle of Uhud, when Amir al-Mu'mineen is back in town, Nabi Rasulullah goes to visit him. What does the riwayah, what does the report has? He had minimum 80 in-depth, severe wounds, Amir al-Mu'mineen. 80 wounds, but like deep wounds. I'm not talking about the minor ones. Imagine 80 strikes, but they're so in-depth that they were doing stitches. And the riwayah has it was so deep that we had to sew it to the point that we had to insert the needle so much to go from one side of the skin and comes out from the other side in order to cover, the wound. 80. Just picture yourself 80 different wounds on the body. So the riwayah has Amir al-Mu'mineen was laid there like a piece of meat. He could not move after the Battle of Uhud. Nabi Rasulullah goes to visit him and he cries. Amir al-Mu'mineen sees Nabi Rasulullah and he cries. He said, why are you crying for me? Amir al-Mu'mineen says, I'm crying because I could not get the tawfiq of shahada in this battle. See, where is he looking? He's not saying, oh, these are painful, these are the wounds that I have, these are all this. He says, oh Rasulullah, I'm so ashamed that shahada was not my provision in this battle. Nabi Rasulullah Christ says, if whoever does this for the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will be worthy for Allah to give him whatever he wants. And then he gives them a news. He says, oh Ali Jan, wait, Abu Sufyan is forming an army again. He gives them the news of the next battle. The minute Nabi Rasulullah says, oh Ali Jan, Abu Sufyan is forming an army and there will be another battle, Amir al-Mu'mineen in that stage says, Wallah, if you allow me right now, I will walk on my hands and I will go and I will defend the territory of Islam. I will go on my hands. You see, he's not even talking, he's not, everything he has. And what age is this? Right, Battle of Uhud. One example. So that love remains within all of us as the follower of the Ahlul Bayt. But how much have we flourished it? How much have we been able to let it grow? How much have we been able to take charge over how actually we perceive the world? How much have we actually been able to give it room to grow? When we have all of these attractions on the side, and mashallah, the world became closer and closer to what we refer as the end times, all we see is more and more and more and more and more of distractions, distractions and distractions. Sometimes the distractions that actually has some benefit. Let's say, for example, if it helps you in your skill set, if it helps you in your profession, if it helps you in your studies, that's good. But a lot of distractions that we have, and we can just run it, do an analysis based on the 24 hours. We don't have to go that far. From this today, the day that we have the Shahada of Nabi Rasulullah, Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, end of Safar, Imam al-Rida, day of Friday, you have Jum'ah prayer, so all of these events were already there. It's not like a normal day which we don't have any program. So even today, start from early morning. How many hours do we spend literally on what we refer to as pure lahab and la'ib. How many hours? From the morning that we wake up. And how much do we spend literally on making that, or letting that love of the Ahlul Bayt grow? Usually when it comes to the time of the prayer, we exclude that from our 24 hours, but how long does it take for us to literally pray? And before and after prayer, immediately before and after prayer, we're doing socializing. Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullah, constantly going back and forth. The salam of the salam is not said. The poor brother has to say, Inna Allah wa malaikatuh. It's not even finished. We're turning around and mashallah, the sound of laughter and socializing and how's everything. It's good, I'm not saying it's bad, but in a proper place. If you want to do, relatively speaking, how much of the 24 hours are we supposed to spend in order to let this love of the Ahlul Bayt grow? If I'm not doing that from early ages, what happens? The age continues to grow and now becomes even more difficult. Why? Because the responsibility that I had back in the days was very few. I could have easily made changes and customized it, but now I have, mashallah, grandkids, and I had the grandkids have their own grandkids, and I have all of these other responsibilities, all of this other stuff on the side. Now I want to make that change. It does not allow me. It keeps me from within. That's Darul Fasiqeen on a personal level, right? Where we forget about the promise that we have given to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What's the promise that we all have given to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? To worship Him and no other thing as we live in this world. How easy it is to forget about this promise. Why do we repeat the topic of taqwa every single Friday? Every single Yawm al-Jum'ah, as one of the arkan of the Salat al-Jum'ah is that you have to talk about taqwa in the first sermon. Every single Friday. Why do we keep on forgetting about the most obvious concept of our life? Just like the concept of death. As again, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, the one topic, the one concept, the one matter that there's absolutely no doubt about it, but yet again, most of the people, majority of the people have doubt in it. As if like death is never going to happen. So if you have death upon us, if you're constantly racing our time towards that time of transportation, then how would that affect the way I spend my time within the 24 hours, spend my time during the week and the month, and how would that affect how even I choose a career path? All of it goes back to this. So alhaakum takathur. Be aware of this takathur. Be aware of constantly wanting more for the sake of having more, right? For the sake of having more. As Amir al-Mu'mineen again says. He says, for me it's so easy when he becomes a Khalif, or the Caliph if you want to say. He says, so what, now that I have become a Caliph and I have all of this personal belongings that Amir al-Mu'mineen had, so should I just settle down with riding the best rides, having the best house and wearing the best clothes, and do not have this concern towards the fellow members who are living under the Islamic territory? And he could. In technicality, Amir al-Mu'mineen was the millionaire of his time. The amount of work that he would do, the amount of return that he would get from all the stuff that he had done. To the point that we have, you can talk about, not lines of donations, but pages and pages and pages and pages of donation of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Which through those donations of Amir al-Mu'mineen is what we see, Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba and Abu Abdullah and the rest of the Ahlul Bayt, little by little are able to form something. If it was not for the work of Amir al-Mu'mineen, none of this stuff would happen. It's not only the knowledge path, but it's literally Amir al-Mu'mineen taking on a shovel and going and digging wells and making farms and making palm tree, fields for the Shi'ayan. Still today, we see witnesses. Where? In Masjid al-Shajara. Those who go to Hajj, they probably have gone there. If you go from Medina to Mecca, there is this place they call it Miqat. You put the ihram on, it's called Masjid al-Shajara. There on the side of it, there are these wells. They call it Abyar Ali. The wells of Amir al-Mu'mineen. When did Amir al-Mu'mineen dig those wells? 1400 years ago. There was no masjid there. There was no miqat. There was nothing. It was, pure desert. On the first journey, on the Hajjatul Wada, as they go, Amir al-Mu'mineen gets informed that this is where Nabi Rasulullah put on his ihram. The very first thing comes to his mind, let me do something that's going to remain there for all of those who want to go on the journey of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He goes, he digs a couple of wells, and he leaves and endows it for the sake of the public. Still there. after all these years. You see how he's constantly working? So it's not about like being lazy, no. It's being active, but aiming this activeness towards a specific goal. What is that goal? To make the realm that we have ma'amur, ready for that establishment. Inshallah, ready to be able to, we can offer it at least to the Imam of time. It's not only by saying, oh, Imam of time, inshallah, hasten your dhuhr. If that's the case, the people of Kufa, they literally wrote it in the letter. You don't even do that, we just say it. At least they had mashallah, the pens and the papers, they wrote a letter, they had the signatures, and 2 or 3 people in each letter, right? Which is a sad part. The day of Ashura, when Imam brings out the letter, and he starts showing the letters one by one, well, actually, in a whole bag. Most of them were signed by more than 2 or 3 people. So the number of the people who invited the Imam at that time, well, what was the problem? The land, Kufa, people was not ma'amur yet, was not ready yet to embrace the Imam al-Ma'asum. So what happens? The minute becomes a decision between choosing between Imam al-Ma'asum or guidance, hidayah, and that golden calf, the dunya, the glamorous of the dunya, the goodies of the dunya. Oh, look how cool it is. Look how up to date it is. Look like everybody has in it, like the very same dunya that we see it every day. The minute that came up, they switched side. Not only they switched side, but they actually believed in the side that they have chosen. This is where it becomes very scary. It's not like they had regret for their decision. They were coming up with all of these different sets of justification from fiqh aspect, from historical aspect, from ideology aspect. What's the proof of this? The communication, the dialogue that takes place between the Qaran of Usara in Kufa and in Sham. From very same beginning of that one. When Imam Sajjad comes to the Dar al-Imara of Yazid, the very first thing Yazid does, because he wants to make sure that he would not take the responsibility for this massacre of Ashura, he says, he recites the ayah of the Quran that whatever you gain, it's a result of your own action. As if he's trying to mock Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wassalam. And what does he respond, Imam Sajjad? Turns out he says, you don't have to recite Quran for me. And he talks about the ayah of the Quran in which he tells him that we're of those who would not become happy with what we gain and would not become sad, but why? But by what we lose. Talking about the 2 different aspects of actually sorrow and grief. And this is where it becomes very fascinating. Yazid sees everything in the form of the dunya, right? So no matter if you take one piece from this dunya away from him, he becomes sad. He starts grieving for it. If you take 1 dirham from him, he will start crying, right? Why? Because all he sees is the dunya. So how does he see Ashura? All of these members of the family, all of these ashab, right? In terms of losing a family members, going back to the love of the dunya. Imam Sajjad says, no, we're not part of those who we say that we have all of this is because of our own actions. No, we're at the stage that we say no matter what Allah takes away from us, no matter what He gives from us, we're still radi. So it gives him that second perspective. He says, don't look at the front side, don't look at what is apparent, don't look at the zahir aspect of it. No, look in depth of it. Look in depth of it, and referring to the very same fitna. That all of this has been given, the power, for some becomes the means of testing others, for others becomes the means of bearing and tolerating that testing that is happening to them. So 2 sets of sorrow and grief, they refer to it as huzn. They say one huzn is destructive. If I become sad and that sadness stops me from functioning, you refer to it as depression. We go to isolation, we don't want to talk to anybody, we want to be just by ourselves, we don't want to do it, right? We start eating lots of ice creams, right? So that kind of huzn is what we refer to as huzn madhmum, is disapproved huzn or sorrow and grief. What are the causes of that one? Usually number 1 is the attachments that we have. Or to be more specific, the stuff that we want. Stuff that we want for whatever reason we don't get. It results into that huzn. But we have this other aspect of huzn, which is the huzn of mamduh, they refer to it. the recommended, or what actually is a constructive, like sorrow and grief. And that's what we see in the maktab of the Ahlul Bayt. When they talk about Shiyatuna, yafrahuna bifarahina wa yahzanuna bihuznina. Our Shias are the one who will become happy by our happiness, and they become sad for our sadness. So does this mean that the month of Muharram comes, I have to pretend to be sad? No, it means it comes from within, right? Is that constructive huzn, is that constructive sadness, is that constructive grief. That's why we constantly repeat the majalis. It goes back to the very same huzn, which the source of it is Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salatu wassalam. So 34 years he was mourning for Imam al-Hussein. Is this a destructive, sorrow and grief? Or no, Imam was able to establish so much. Just one sign of it. When the tragedy of Ashura happened, Imam al-Sajjad says at that time, if we would combine the three major cities, Mecca, Medina, and Kufa, all of them together, we had less than 20 followers. Less than 20 people, right? When Imam al-Sajjad becomes shaheed, how the whole thing has changed throughout the 34 years of Imam not having a school, not having a masjid, not having any of the followers, not having any community, and so many years of the life of Imam literally moved out of the city, right? Within the 34 years, while he's grieving for Abu Abdullah, once he's mourning for Abu Abdullah, what did he do? When there was the burial time for Imam al-Sajjad, the Ravi said, I looked inside of Masjid al-Nabi, I could not find a single person praying at the masjid. Rather, everybody from the entire town, they had come and participated in the burial of Ali ibn al-Husayn, Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So the very same sorrow and grief becomes the source of being even more active, right? Accomplishing more. On which path? Flourishing that love of the Ahlul Bayt. Flourishing that love of the Quran. But this flourishment, it needs a base. Don't lose track of our topic. That base always has to be present. If I do so many good things, but at the same time, I don't have the base ready for it, what happens to all of those good deeds? Right? I have to maintain, that foundation in which we talk about. I have to maintain the field in which I'm going to be planting those seeds. Otherwise, if I have the best quality of the seeds and I have so many of them, but I planted in a wrong field, or I planted in a field that belongs to someone else, that actually burns a little bit more. You do all the work, someone else harvests your result. So if my base is not ready, if that foundation is not set, if I'm not working on where I'm doing all of this good, in what content, right? What will be the result of it? So we see that, again, as I mentioned on the first day, Imam al-Sadiq says, go to the ziyarat of Abu Abdullah, but at the same time, la tazuru, don't go for ziyarat. We just said go to ziyarat. Right? Then Imam explains. He says, yes, go to the ziyarat of Abu Abdullah, but which one of you would go to meet, for example, to participate in the burial of their parents while they're taking all of this, mashallah, goodies and na'amat and all of these distractions with them? Referring to the time that people would start go for the ziyarat of Imam al-Hussein, but the path of ziyarat becomes a path of adventure, becomes a path of takathur, becomes a path of, darul, continue. Why? Because that goal is forgotten. The vision is forgotten. The message is forgotten, right? The message of Abu Abdullah, the one thing that we constantly hear about. I'm rising, why? For the reformation within the nation of my, grandfather. لِإِصْلَاحَ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّي. So this reformation, was it only for the people who were living there? Or no, that reformation is supposed to happen to me and you sitting here after 1400 years, benefiting from the majalis of Abu Abdullah as well. If that reformation does not show itself after the whole month of Safar has passed, what does that tell me? I came to the majlis, I mourned for Imam al-Hussein, I did what I could, I helped out, but when I look back, nothing is changed. That doesn't question the deed, it questions in what stage or what content, in what circumstances did I maintain the deed? Did I gain so much at the same time with one slight word, I let it all out? With one act of, let's say, mockery, with one act of backbiting, with one act of like, all of this, right? The topic of muraqabah. So we have to maintain it, we have to hold it. And it becomes very difficult, especially living in this time as we're going and getting closer and closer to what we refer to as akhir al-zaman. What akhir al-zaman literally means is this, is that like the dunya, the world, the mundane world, it shows itself, it expresses itself to all of us at the most amount of, like let's say, adornment, the most amount of perfection that it can possibly show itself. Why? It wants the maximum amount of attention. Why? Testing purposes. The dunya reveals itself, but for what reason? For some to take it and like become a part of the testing upon others, for the others who do not take it and they become tested by others for that sincerity. The story of those who accompanied, I believe it's Nabi Musa, if I'm not mistaken, and they entered this darker, area, and there are these, pieces of, they think rocks on the ground. So they asked, should we pick up this, should not be picked? No. The Prophet that was with them, they said, pick as much as you want. They start, weighting those objects that they cannot see what it is, and they're like, it's heavy, and we're traveling. Why would I need an extra bag? So they become different groups. A group picks some, the group picks maybe a few. A group says, no, I don't want any of this. I don't even know what it is. I have to see it before I believe in. They move on from that realm, that region. They enter, the sunrise and the light of the day. They look. What were those pieces of object? Pure jewels. So what happens now between the people? The ones who picked up, right? They wanted more. The ones who picked a few, they said, oh, how come we didn't pick up more? The ones who didn't pick up at all, they start coming up with doubts and criticism and question, how come he didn't tell us it's a jewel? How come he didn't tell us specifically? How come he didn't, for example, guide us towards this? A lot of times it's just a hint. It's not even specifically telling us, right? So we're supposed to reach that higher stage of ma'rifah, that we get those hints by the very same teachings that we have. It's not to be specific, telling us in a big sign from Imam of time that, okay, everybody go right, everybody go left. That's not how it's going to work. No, it comes through the intermediaries, it comes through the messages, it comes through the hints that he constantly is providing to us. But are we even having concern towards receiving those messages from our Imam of time? Or no, we are so busy with our life. We are so busy with something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guaranteed it for us, the provisioning that we have. It may not be to the extent that we want, right? But again, what we want is not necessarily what is good for us. What we want is not necessarily what is actually needed for us to gain that sense of perfection. So that's why we say, Alhaakum at-takathur. Be aware of this wanting more and more and more. Be aware of that one. It's going to continue to grow until when? Until they say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. It's not going to leave us alone. We have to work on it. Now, as today is the Shahadat of Imam Ali ibn Musa Raza alayhi salatu wassalam, let me share one hadith, and inshallah we can wrap up the discussion for today through the barakat of salawati ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. He needs a second salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So there is actually this dua that has been narrated by our beloved 8th Imam in the honor of Imam of time. Where is it written? In Mafatih, you can find it. Where else? In the other books of dua. So Imam at his time, he recites this dua for the safety and security of Sahib al-Zaman. In that dua, as Imam starts to read, then he talks about the people who will be helping the Imam of time. He refers to it as the hizb of the Imam of time, the team of the Imam of time. And then he's asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَجْعَلْنَا فِي حِزْبِهِ. Imam al-Rida, right? He's asking, oh Allah, place me and all of those followers among the hizb of who? Imam of time. Al-Qawwamina bi-amrih. Then he gives description. قوامين بأمره. What's the quality of these people? Number one, they have this qivam. What does qivam means? Like, being constant, steadfast on what we actually set as an object, right? They would not like shift sides like by any given wind that comes, but by any trend that starts, but any mainstream that comes. A new topic, all of a sudden we shift our side. A new topic, we shift to the other side. A new topic comes up, a new question, a new criticism, a new view, everything changed. No. Al-Qawwamina bi-amrih. They're firm on the amr of who? On the order of Sahib al-Zaman. As-Sabirina ma'ah. Not only they have that qivam, they had that the firmness alongside of like the Imam of time. As-Sabirina ma'ah. They are patient alongside of him. What does this patient means? Because holding on to vilayah requires being patient with it, to tolerate it. It's hard to take orders, right? Like even in the classroom, when the teacher says something to do your homework, like, I have to do homework again, right? Or the study, why do we have all of this, like for example, midterms and finals and grades and pluses and minuses? If they leave it to us, will we even continue the school? If they say you don't need a degree, you don't need a GPA, you don't need anything, you can go to anywhere you want, get any job you want, the whole thing collapses. It's hard to tolerate vilayah. It becomes very severe the closer the person becomes on the stage of the sincerity, right? وَالصَّابِرِينَ مَعَهُ. The ones who are patient with him. And the last one, الطالبين رضاك بمناصحته. The ones who are like with Imam of time, seeking only one thing, and that is رضا الله. The contentment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala بمناصحته. Through which way? A path of anger and wrath and being completely drawn? No, the opposite. Through the path of munasaha, tolerating or putting up with the people, right? So being patient, at the same time putting up with whatever criticism that may come around. Being patient and steadfast in what we believe. Isn't that our identity? The Muslim identity, I've been noticing that number one topics that a lot of scholars, mashallah, they've been talking about is this topic of identity. The identity, if you refer to the very same ayah, must not actually change. It's the very same identity. If it changed by a singleness of this, the new stuff that comes up, a new trend that starts happening, and again, these days it's very easy, right? That's not really a firm identity. You have to work on it, right? So Imam Rida alayhi salatu wassalam, who's known as Gharib of Ghuraba, who's known as the Zamin Ahu. There are so many stories about him. Those who have gone to his shrine, they know. As the Imam who's known to be the Alim Muhammad, the most knowledgeable one of all of the progeny of Nabi Rasulullah, due to the circumstances, obviously, that he was placed in. The very same Imam who's known as Imam al-Ra'uf. It's not Imam of Rahim or Imam al-Rahman. No, he's known as Imam of Ra'uf. Ra'uf is that higher stage of Rahmah. When you don't even have to ask, without even asking, perhaps you're not even looking up to raise your request, Imam is already giving you. This is our Imam al-Rida. And just you can see by the effects of it. He was 3 years in Marv, in where the Turkmenistan is today, and today you can see a whole city, not a whole city, a whole country, not a whole country, but how many millions of people go for his ziyarat from all over the world. There is no advertisement, there is no freebies, there is no if you take 2 for 1, why all these people go there? Very same love of the Ahlul Bayt, they had witnessed something, they had felt something. That's why they go there. One famous story, again, on a Friday morning, I myself, I was, alhamdulillah, at the haram of the Imam al-Rida, I go to one of the courtyards. I noticed this, not a everyday people that you would see at the haram. MashaAllah, these brothers, these dudes, right? All tall, 6 foot something, wearing leather jackets, shaved head, long beards, tattoos all over the face, wearing sunglasses, these rings all over their, fingers and bracelets and all of the stuff, mashallah. And I'm looking at him Friday morning, dua notepads outside, inside, you see, right? So I became curious. I went to ask him, hey, what are you guys from? What are you guys doing here at the shrine of Imam Rida? And they're all like relaxed as if like they're enjoying their time. 5-star hotel. So they keep on talking. What are they? They're bikers. Harley Davidsons. What do? They go from one country to another country as a habit, as like, hobby, a tour with the bikes. So they plan everything ahead for 2 months. So how many days, how many in this country, in that country, and they send out their bikes beforehand, make sure they meet their plans. So what are you guys doing at the shrine of Imam Raza on a Friday morning? Everybody's sleeping. It's like, no, we were supposed to be on the neighboring country today. But what happened last night, we were supposed to go according to this plan. That plan got changed at the last minute. Our tour guide had a flaw. He couldn't meet our plan. So instead of making it up for us, he offered to come to this place that a lot of people go as a visit, and everything there is provided for free. Everything there is provided for free. Like, okay, let's go. Let's go take some pictures. At least we see a tourist attraction site. We didn't know. They're non-Muslims, right? So he took us, we entered from this place, and they were searching us, and we were all offended about this search. What had this guy brought us for? But hey, we keep on saying, okay, it's free, let's go just take pictures, and we come out. We entered this, wide area, and then we took some pictures, we came out. In maximum 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We came home, we went to the restaurant, we had the dinner, and then we came to our home, the rooms in the hotel. At the end of the night, we used to huddle every night to share the memories of that day. We got together, I looked to the one next to me, he looked to the one next to him, he looked to the next one, trying to mention what was the best thing that has happened to us on that day. And all of us said the very same thing. That place we went to, the place where they searched us and then we took a picture only for 5 minutes we were there, that was a one-of-a-kind experience. All of them. So what we did, we contact our tour agency, we said postpone all of our plans for 1 extra day. Everything that you have booked, everything that you have scheduled, everything that you have paid, push all of them for 1 day. Why? We want to stay in this city 1 more day. Why? We want to go back to that place 1 more time. Why do you want to do that? We just want to sit and enjoy the feeling that we have tasted in the shrine of Imam Raza. Non-Muslims, non-believers, their mentality way off, right? They sense it. That's the true sense of Hidayah, right? And we see it in the system of Abu Abdullah, we see it in the system of the Ahlul Bayt, in any of the Imams that we talk about. It's only a matter of trying to maintain, again, that hope, that love that we have, inshallah, for them. Assalamu alayka ya Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. Assalamu alayka ya Abul Hasan. Ya Ali ibn Musa ayyuha al-Rida. Ya ibn Rasul Allah. يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. There is a beautiful story by Marhum al-Dasqib in his book in which he talks about one of the elders who was buried actually in the haram of the Imam al-Rida. And he says that one of the scholars, he met him at the haram and he was just drawn by his brightful face. He was an elder uncle in the shrine. So he goes up to him and he noticed that he's barely able to even stand up to his old age. So he helps him stand up. He tells him if there's anything he can do for him. He tries to attend his affairs. He takes him home. He makes sure everything is good and sound and secure. And he keeps on asking questions from him. That, hey, the connection I saw, the sensation I felt from you at the shrine of Imam al-Rida, that's something new for me. How did you obtain that status? So after a couple of days, he told me a story. He said, back in the days, I'm actually from Iraq, I'm not from Iran, but he spoke fluently in Farsi. He says, ever since I became a young youth, I made this commitment to myself to go for the ziyarat of Imam al-Rida at least once per year. And when I started, the means of transportation was not the ones that you see today. People literally had to go by camels and horses and walks. So the first 3 trip that I had was actually without getting on any sort of a vehicle. On the first journey, first time, at the time of my youth, when I started my traveling towards the city of Mashhad, I had these other 3 people who accompanied me to some extent of the way. As we got over the border, as we got closer to the boundaries of the city of Mashhad, they had to go to the different route. So when we came to say Khuda Hafiz, when we came to say the farewell, they were all transformed and changed because of the losing the opportunity of going for the ziyarah. So they start telling me that we have iltimas dua. When you go there, when you go to the shrine, keep us in your du'as and keep us in your prayers. So they went their way, I came towards the shrine of Imam al-Rida. He says, when I entered the shrine, because I was so tired from this whole journey and I had no place to rest, I did my ziyarat, a very quick ziyarat. I was looking around, I didn't even know when I started taking a nap in a corner in one of the rooms on the side of the shrine of Imam al-Rida. He said, on that dream, I saw Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida alayhi salatu wassalam, right where his zarih is in the shrine. And he was greeting every single za'ir himself. And he was giving out these passages, these texts, these pieces of notes to every single za'ir himself. So I ran towards Imam al-Rida and I was trying to drop myself at the feet of Imam al-Rida, but he did not. He stopped me, and he gave me 4 of those papers as well. So I asked him what are these papers? Imam says, just look. Before I look, I asked him again, oh Imam al-Rida, you're Imam al-Ma'soom, you're the leader, you should not be going after every single person, giving them hand, you can delegate. Imam al-Rida says, no, every single one of these people that come here, they are my za'ir. It is upon me to embrace them. It is upon me to respect them. It is upon me to welcome them. He said, I woke up from my dream and I saw the 4 pieces of notes in my hand. I opened one. What does it say on it? It says, Haza, this is the safe passage from the fire of hell, a safe passage from accountability, a safe passage and the entry point towards the heaven, and Ana ibn Rasulullah. I am the son of Nabi Rasulullah. But why 4? All of a sudden it clicked for me that Imam has even given me the 3 extra to give it back to my friends who were accompanying me all the way to the boundaries of the city of Mashhad. This is the Imam al-Ra'uf. Now what happens to this Imam al-Ra'uf? That when he gets summoned, he calls out for his family. He says, my entire family, they all come together and start to mourn and cry for me. The family, they say, oh Imam, it's makruh to mourn behind a traveler as he's about to start his journey. Imam says this is makruh, but not on the journey that you know there will be no return for it. So start to have mourning for me even before I go, because it is hard already to say my farewell, but not knowing that I would not come back to you. He starts his journey. On the journey, all of the karamat that we see from him, all of that aside, he comes to the city of Mav. He becomes appointed as the crown prince. Yet again, look at all of the tactics that Mal'un Ma'mun was applying against Imam al-Rida, to the point that Imam starts doing dua, oh Allah, if my afiyah is in to take my life, do so at this very same moment, referring that there is constant going and fitna and constant like different plans from Ma'mun trying to disfame and disrespect Imam al-Rida alayhi salatu wassalam. So it finally happens, and he's telling Abbasad, he's saying, oh Abbasad, tomorrow there will be knocking on the door. Once you answer, there will be the guards from Ma'mun's palace. They're asking me to go to Ma'mun's place. Oh Abbasad, follow us with some distance and wait for me. Once I go inside, when I come outside, take a look at my face. If my face, I have covered it with my abba, know that that's it. I will be gone within the day. If not, everything is normal. Abbasad says, I was puzzled about what Imam al-Rida is telling me when I heard the knock on the door. Who is it behind the door? The guards of Ma'mun. What's the reason? They want to see Imam al-Rida at the place of Ma'mun. They take Imam al-Rida. Abbasad follows. Imam al-Rida goes inside. Abbasad is staying outside. Inside, Ma'mun is sitting on his throne. The minute he sees Imam al-Rida, he gets up. He says, oh my cousin, welcome, welcome. He gets up, he goes, he embraces Imam al-Rida, he points it towards the throne, and he gives a seat right next to him at the throne of his palace. And he starts breaking up the icebreaker. Then they bring this tray of fruit and they lay it in front of Ma'mun. Ma'mun looks at the tray. He picks up this part of the grape, as you want to say, slightly picks out a few drops of that grape, and he eats it. And he says, how delicious is this grape, oh Abul Hasan, have some. Imam al-Rida looks at him. He says, I'm good. Today, no grapes for me. Ma'mun again gently picks out a couple more seeds of the grape and he eats. He says, no, this is the most delicious grape that I had in my life. Have some. Again, Imam al-Rida says, no, thank you. I'm not in the mood for grape today. Ma'mun looks at Imam al-Rida and he says, are you accusing us of something, O Abul Hasan? This is an order for you to have some of this grape. The Maqtal says Imam al-Rida takes to the grave, takes maximum 3 seeds of the grape, he drops the rest, he starts running towards the door. As he starts to run towards the door, Ma'mun says, oh Abul Hasan, where are you going? Imam says, to where that you want me to go. He pulls on the abba over his face. He exits the palace of Ma'mun and he's walking towards the home. Abbasad says, I saw Imam al-Rida coming out of the palace, covered his face with his abba. But from the palace to the house of the Imam is not much of a distance, but he kept on sitting down. He would get up, maybe take 1 or 2 steps, he would sit down again. Then again, he would get up, take 1 or 2 steps, he would sit down again. The amount of pain, the amount of suffering that I could see in Imam's body, he could not even take 1 step straight. He would constantly leaning to the side and he would sit down to gain his breath 1 more time. He would get up to go 1 step, 2 steps, he had to sit down. Some of the maqat, some of the report according to Sheikh Saduq, he said 50 times Imam al-Rida had to sit down in order to catch his breath until he was able to reach his house. They say we don't know what a poison was that in that grave that made Imam al-Rida instantly feel the effects of it to this extreme. Amir al-Mu'mineen was poisoned on the sword as well, but he lived for 3 days and 2 nights. Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba was poisoned. He lived for 3 days. Most of the Imams who were poisoned, they continued to live for a couple of days. But for the story of Imam al-Rida, it happened in the morning. Before the afternoon, Imam al-Rida was gone, as gone. So what a severe poison they had given to him. Abbasad says, I start following the Imam al-Rida and I was mourning for him. We entered the house. Imam al-Rida went to his room. He said, oh Abbasad, close all of the doors behind you. I don't want to see anybody else. Then he went to the room and he says, anything else I can do? He says, oh Abbasad, if you can remove all of the carpets from my room. Abbasad says, oh Imam al-Rida, remove the carpets. Imam al-Rida says, yes, remove this carpet. Let me lay down on the plain floor of my house. Oh Imam al-Rida, why would you want to lay down on the plain floor of your
your house. I want to have the feeling of my Jad Abu Abdullah on the day of Ashura when his body hit the place of Karbala. Let me just have a little bit of that feeling tonight. Oh, Abba said, remove the mattress, remove the carpet. Let me lay my body on the plate. All of a sudden, Abba Sad says, I did whatever Imam asked me. I looked around, I saw this young shabab, a youth, about the age of 8, face shining like a moon. I asked him, who are you? And how did you get in? I locked all the doors. He turns around and says, step aside, oh Abba Salt, the one who brought me from Medina to here, the very same one who will take me from through the locked doors. Step aside, let me say my salam to my father. Imam al-Jawad enters the room of Imam al-Raza. Abba Salt outside is describing this meeting between the father and the son. And Imam al-Jawad goes, the smile coming on the face of Imam al-Raza. Imam al-Jawad first embraces his father. He gives a kiss between the forehead of Imam al-Raza. He holds on to the head of Imam al-Raza as they constantly talking to each other, and Imam is doing his last wasaya to him. At one point, the Basad says, I could see the shoulders of Imam al-Jawad shaking and shaking as he cries, for the soul of Imam al-Raza has left his body. But la yawka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. Oh Imam al-Raza, your son finally came to visit you, but I didn't tell you about a day when Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is looking towards the Godal of Qatlaga, when his son Ali al-Akbar goes back for the second time towards the battlefield. What happens? One of the Mal'unin, he comes from the backside, from the corner, he takes the spear, he hits it on the side of Hazrat Ali Akbar, and by that Hazrat Ali Akbar leans to the side, the helmet falls down, another one strikes with the sword on the head of Hazrat Ali Akbar. He falls down on the horse, the blood covers the eyes. Oh Imam al-Rida, here the sun goes towards the enemy, all they see the swords going up to the sky, falling down on the body of Ali al-Akbar. The expression that we have, cutting him into pieces, Erban Erba, Erban Erba. But oh Imam, all of this is happening in front of Abu Abdullah, and all he's seeing, the swords going up towards the sky. Finally the shout, one last shout of Hazrat Ali Akbar, Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. Imam breaks through the army. They say once he gets closer to the remaining body of Hazrat Ali Akbar, he drops himself from Zuljanah to the plain of Karbala. He starts walking on his knees towards the body of Hazrat Ali Akbar. I don't know which part of the body was he able to embrace, but the Maqtal says Imam leaned down and he placed Faj'al khaddahu ala khadde. He placed the side of his face along the side of the face of Hazrat Ali Akbar, and I started to crying and mourning for Hazrat Ali Akbar. All of a sudden Sayyida Zainab hears this halala from the enemy. She comes out from the khayma. She goes on the Talla Zainabiyya. What does she see in the Godal of Qatlaga that makes her run towards Abu Abdullah? And only is that when Imam al-Hussein gets up from the body of Ali Akbar, as he keeps on saying, Waladi, 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 oh my son, oh my son, oh my son. He goes to Sayyida Zainab and he says, oh the youth of Bani Hashim, alaykum, it is upon you to gather around the body of your cousin Ali al-Akbar. How many does it take to carry a body from Qatlagah back to Khaymagah? Maybe 2 or 3. No, Imam says, oh the youth of Bani Hashim, Allah knows what they have done to the body of Ali al-Akbar on the day of Ashura. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayyamun qalabin yanqalibun. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم إلهي بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك وسنة نبيك. Oh Allah, will ask you to hasten the appearance of Imam of Time.
and give us the true ma'rifah of our Imam of time, and inshallah the tawfiq of being part of his true companions. O Allah, will ask you to extend your maghfirah and your rahmah upon all of us and upon all of the marhumin and marhumat. O Allah, will ask you to provide complete shifa for all of those who have gone down with sicknesses. O Allah, will ask you to answer the hawaij of mu'mineen and mu'minat. O Allah will ask you to provide guidance upon all of us, upon all of our family and children, our offsprings and next generations. O Allah will ask you to grant every single one of us the life of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad and the death of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. It is the day of Friday. Let's make our intention, inshallah. The only thing that we can ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the eve of the Friday, inshallah, will be the hastening of the appearance of Imam of time. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma kull waliyaka al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوات.
Ya Hussein. Brothers, please move forward. Just for the matam. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. أني أكبر ولدي 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 میر پیامبر خدا حافظ میر پیامبر خدا حافظ reflection of Haydar خدا حافظ my most precious treasure خدا حافظ my Ali Akbar خدا حافظ your turn to leave has come waladi my heart is in pieces waladi all the women and children lined up to bid you a farewell waladi Ali Akbar 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 waladi refuge of Sakina, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda Hafiz, refuge of Sakina, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda, my most precious treasure, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda Hafiz, comrade of great Abbas, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda Hafiz, let me die when you pass, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda Hafiz, curses to the one hiding in wait, waiting to slay my flower Ali. Oh God, may a father never see his flower in this state. Waladi, Ali, Ali Akbar, 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 Waladi, Ali, Ali Waladi, my beloved youth, go, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda, my beloved youth, go, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda Hafiz, coolness of my eyes, go, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda Hafiz, this is daddy's death blow, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda Hafiz, no life with your sorrow, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda Hafiz, wait, let me see your eyes one more time, let me look at your face one more time, stand in front of me, my Ali dear, let me see my Akbar one more time, Ali, Ali Akbar, Waladi, 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 Ali, Ali Akbar. Love of the Medina, it's Khuda Hafiz, Khuda. Love of the Medina, it's Khuda Hafiz. When they yearned Rasul side, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda. My support in old age, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda. Is to die in this fight, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda Hafiz. How I would have loved to see you wed, hold your children and lay them in bed. Now I'm going to bury my wish, soon even your father will be dead. Ali, Ali Akbar, Waladi, Ali, Ali Akbar, Waladi, Ali, Ali Akbar, Waladi, Ali, Ali Akbar, Waladi. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there, leave me there. Hussein, bye, Hussein, bye, Hussein, bye, Hussein, bye. صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين أيها الزين العابدين. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر. السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق. السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم. السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي أيها الجواد. السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي أيها العسكري. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا إمام الإنس والجان، يا صاحب العصر والزمان، يا شريك القرآن. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك، واجعلنا جميعا من أعوانك وأخص شيعتك ومحبيك جميعا، ورحمة الله وبركاته.